Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us this morning for the Energy Assurance Advisory Group meeting. I'm Kenya Stomp, Executive Director, Kentucky Office of Energy Policy. We have Amanda Lemaster here, our Energy Assurance Coordinator, and Carol Stringer with our office as our Grant Administrator and is also helping us with technical assistance today on our Zoom webinar. If I could get a sound check in the chat, someone, if the sound is okay. Let's see if the chat. You should be able to have chat. So just sound check. If anyone can hear us, sound check, if you could type good to go or in the chat. Okay.
Somebody raise a hand.
Let's go to the chat.
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, if we are having audio, please let us know in the chat. We're going to go through some Zoom. You can get rid of the chat, Carol. Yeah. Yep.
I can't.
Can you click down here, Carol?
Question. So you
Oh, there's a question. Okay, good. Thank you, Liz. And we're going to stop video and we're going to move on through the advisory group meeting just to help with bandwidth and sound. And can you check, click down here so I can, yeah. Okay, good. I got it now. So just let's get started here with some Zoom webinar basics. First, this meeting is being recorded. All participants have chat and Q&A enabled, but no audio or video except for panelists today. We ask that any questions you have reserved for the Q&A and that any just general comments or chat with other panelists or others in the audience, put that in the chat, but questions for us will be reserved for the Q&A. Your audio settings, if you're not familiar with Zoom, are next to that little, it says audio settings with the little hat. You do not have audio, unmute, or mute except for panelists today. The chat box is our familiar chat window, and we ask that those be just comments or chat with other participants. You can raise your hand if there's an issue during the webinar. And again, we have a separate Q&A window allowing you to ask questions to the host and panelists, and then we can reply back as well. The agenda for today, we would like you to do some introductions right now. So for those of you joining us, please in the chat, just go ahead and chime in who you are and who you're with, and we'll give everyone a few moments to use the chat to introduce yourself to the group today. If you put in the chat, I'll go ahead and do mine. Click there.
Chat is disabled. Oh. Okay, sorry people.
And I ask in the sorry about that. We will then in the Q&A, you can put who you are, and we will correct that later on. So sorry about that. I will say, oh, there's Rebecca Goodman, except it's John Lyons.
Good morning, all. Sorry for the confusion, and I didn't have the link to the meeting, and the secretary is involved with another meeting that she had to go to with mayors and county judges for the East Kentucky disaster. So we are trying to hand off things, and certainly I'm glad to fill in for the secretary. She'll be
Well,
joining us
John-
probably.
John,
Can you
it's
hear?
great, it's great timing because we were just going through welcome and introductions.
Okay.
Next, we have opening remarks, and it's really from Secretary Goodman. So John, you've got a couple of minutes just to welcome the Energy Assurance Advisory Group. Give us some background on kind of what we've been seeing with these past disasters, and of course, your experience with our energy assurance plan, working at the EOC. So I'll turn it over to you, John, and we'll mute ourselves and give it over to you.
Okay. Well, if this sounds kind of broken, it's because I really don't have anything prepared. So I'll just be speaking from my experience thus far. And certainly these disasters have brought forth the importance of this topic and what it means to all the citizens of the Commonwealth. We've experienced so many disasters in this administration, it's just hard to fathom. Ice storms, floods, tornadoes, even wildfire, which has been minimal over the last couple of years, but just going back to 2016 when we had a tremendous wildfire season that threatened our infrastructure in some places in Eastern Kentucky. All these disasters really can put us in a difficult situation a lot of times. And if you haven't been personally involved with the most recent ones with the Western Kentucky tornadoes or this recent flooding event that happened in July in Eastern Kentucky, I've personally witnessed it in the destruction. And as I've told many people, if you haven't seen it, you really can't fathom it. You can't understand the magnitude of what has occurred up there. For instance, we just now got Buckhorn, the city of Buckhorn, back in water, and still not everybody in that city has water. So they did without water for 30 days. And, the utilities, the wastewater, drinking water, electric, and I must say with the flooding in particular, I happened to be there when Kentucky Power was restoring power to some of these areas. That was just, there were so many poles that were lost and so many people lost electricity, but they did an outstanding job of getting people back in electricity up there, which is obviously very important for a lot of reasons. But this just shows the importance of what this group has been put together to do. And it's obviously not just for disaster purposes, but just for resiliency and redundancy and security for all the citizens of the Commonwealth. I don't know if any of you have ever been without water before. I was without water for a day and I thought the world was coming to an end. So I can't imagine, 30 days of being without water or power. And many people have experienced that with ice storms, particularly with the power sector. I've known people who've been without power for 3 weeks at a time, and that's really a hardship. So I want to welcome all of you and look forward to the discussion, and look forward to the discussion of obviously our energy plan. And I see here the support function, ESF 12, which Kenya participates in. I've participated in personally at my time with the Public Service Commission over at the EOC, and the importance of what those folks do and continue to do, and the time that's put in to help folks in time of need. So Kenya, with that, I'll turn it back over to you and we can get the agenda started, and I'll be happy to participate in whatever way you need me to.
Thanks, John. And if you want to go ahead and mute, and if you want to, thank you. So welcome everyone. For many of you, this is probably a meeting that you're unfamiliar with. The Energy Assurance Advisory Group actually is just a new name for the Energy Resources Management Board that's been in existence for many, many years. And that has been a part of our plan, that we do have an advisory group. We felt it more apt to call that group now an Energy Assurance Advisory Group, in that we've leaned on this group, not in its entirety, but parts and pieces over the last 2.5 years. We've been through, as John said, I think we've been involved in 8 events, not just natural disasters. We've been involved in a cybersecurity event. We've been involved in a civil unrest event. We've been involved in, of course, the disasters that have hit parts of our state. So, and the group here, in their pieces and parts, has helped us at emergency support function 12 for energy, and has also informed us over the past 2.5 years on what updates are needed to the energy assurance plan, now known as the energy security plan. And the last version of that was a 2018 version that we've been working on updating over the past 2.5 years. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Carol, and we have a poll. So we have an interactive poll for the group. We're going to launch that poll. And we're going to give everyone some time to participate in the poll. Come on, we're halfway there. All right, 13 of 16 participated. So a good mix. You want to share the results, Carol?
Sure.
Share the results. Yeah. So we're going to share the results. Somewhat familiar, most of you. That's good. This will be a refresher for some. But we have a few that are not familiar at all, and this will be a good foundational presentation on what we do here at the Office of Energy Policy in terms of energy assurance. And we have some that are very familiar. So let's move on. Can you click at the bottom? I'm going to turn it over to Amanda Lemaster to take us through what we do here in terms of emergency support function for energy.
Thanks, Kenya. My name is Amanda Lemaster. I'm the Energy Assurance Coordinator for the Commonwealth of Kentucky. And today I'm going to talk about how our office is integrated into the Emergency Support Function 12 that represents energy. So I want to start with our structure. We fall within the Energy and Environment Cabinet. The Energy and Environment Cabinet serves the public by enforcing laws relating to natural resources and the environment. We all work together to keep Kentucky's citizens safe and healthy while supporting a positive business climate. Within the EEC are 2 main departments and several offices, including the Office of Administrative Services, the Public Service Commission, Office of Nature Preserve, Office of the Secretary, our office, the Office of Energy Policy, Department of Natural Resources, as well as the Department of Environmental Protection. So the Office of Energy Policy sees energy and environmental issues being integrated with one another, and our mission is to support the utilization of Kentucky's energy resources for the betterment of the Commonwealth while protecting and improving our environment. One of our goals is to enhance the energy resilience and security of the Commonwealth by identifying opportunities to increase our ability to respond effectively to energy disruptions, to recover quickly, and to maintain an uninterrupted supply of energy resources at affordable prices. So the Office of Energy Policy was established in 2018 by a legislative directive, and we're partially funded through the Department of Energy's State Energy Program, and we are charged with enhancing energy security, advancing state-led energy initiatives, increasing investments in economic growth, as well as maximizing the benefits of decreasing energy waste. The Office of Energy Policy is responsible for updating the Energy Security Plan, which serves as a reference manual, state operating procedures for all energy emergencies in the state. We also are the state leading coordinating agency for Emergency Support Function 12, which represents energy. So the Office of Energy Policy, representing the ESF 12, works directly with Kentucky Emergency Management. KYEM is a division of Kentucky Department of Military Affairs and is governed by Chapter 39A of the Kentucky Revised Statutes. Of the statute, it requires that KYEM coordinate with the governor all matters pertaining to the comprehensive energy management programs, including certain emergency planning activities, as well as it requires KYEM to periodically update and submit the Kentucky Emergency Operation Plan to the governor for approval and adoption through issuance of signed executive order. So our integration with KYEM is automatic. The Energy Security Plan is a natural extension of Kentucky's SCOP, which both plans reference one another and follow the FEMA Incident Command System, as well as the Commonwealth Unified Command Framework. So the ICS is a management system designed to enable effective and efficient incident management by integrating a combination of facilities, equipment, personnel, procedures, and communicating operations. It is designed for resources during an incident response as one organized structure. So we also follow the Commonwealth Unified Command that provides policy and overall guidance to response and recovery operations managed at the CEOP. A chief staff of 4 personnel of administrative supports for the Commonwealth Unified Command are the governor's representative, the adjutant general of Kentucky National Guard, representatives from Kentucky Emergency Management, and from our Secretary Commissioner of Primary Response Organizations. So in the time of events, we report to the State Emergency Operations Center, which is the command and control center for all communications and response to disaster incidents or events. The State Emergency Operations Center has a management team comprised of KYM staff, Kentucky National Guard, private sector partners that we'll discuss in a moment, and is responsible for coordinating the Commonwealth's response in support of all local jurisdictions and citizens. So activations vary in degree and are categorized here. These are listed out in both the State Emergency Operation Plan as well as the Energy Security Plan. So at level 5, this is really just your normal day-to-day event. Incident may have occurred, but the duration is usually closed within a 12-hour operational period, and it's handled behind the scenes. So at level 4, that's when it involves multiple resources. And it's not a long-term event, it's usually closed within 2 periods. Once again, this is usually handled in-house with KYM. Once we get to level 3, this is where there's a greater complexity that requires activation of emergency support function personnel, and it has an extended duration. This could be 3+ operational periods and requires staffing from our ESF partners. We get to level 2. This incident is an extended duration. It's not closed within any clearly defined number of periods and may require activation of not only ESFs, but as well as local, county, and potentially federal personnel. Once we get to level 0, I guess it could be 1-0, sorry, we are no longer functional. We are implementing our COOP plan. We're trying to figure out a different location for us to set up our services so that we can continue continuity of services. Basically, this is a black sky event. This could be an event that could occur, say, if the New Madrid were to hit and we were feeling effects of that in the state. I've not seen this level before, and let's pray that we don't anytime soon. So depending on the level of activation, Kentucky Emergency Management will request representatives from emergency support functions, which are groupings of governmental and certain private sector capabilities into an organizational structure to provide support, resources, program implementation, and services that are most likely needed to save lives, protect property and the environment, restore essential services and critical infrastructure, while also helping victims and communities return to normal following an incident. So emergency support functions are identified in Kentucky's Emergency Response Plan and are also listed here in this chart. So there are 15 critical lifelines and services that, if disrupted, could threaten the health and safety of Kentuckians. Each emergency support function is required to develop a standard operating procedure and notification protocols and to maintain current rosters and contact information. For the Office of Energy Policy, our energy security plan serves as ESF 12's SOP. So the Office of Energy Policy, along with the Public Service Commission, is the designated primary state agency for ESF 12. OEP is responsible for establishing an organized procedure to determine how energy resources are used and prioritized within Kentucky during an emergency. We're responsible for outlining direction and control, developing a broad concept of operations, and suggest general activities to be carried out during each phase of preparedness, response, mitigation, and recovery. The Office of Energy Policy coordinates with the private sector the emergency repair and restoration of petroleum and fuel. The Public Service Commission is responsible for all issues dealing with natural gas and electric services, including utilities normally considered non-jurisdictional. They're responsible for natural gas pipelines as well as electrical transmission issues. The Office of Energy Policy works closely with the lead agency for ESF 12, with the Department of Energy, to ensure federal plans integrate and align with state strategies in preparation for responding to and recovering from energy disruptions with potential impacts to Kentucky. So the Office of Energy Policy, we represent ESF 12. We provide situational awareness, and we are the voice during disruptions. We have no regulatory authority. Therefore, we strive to build and maintain relationships with all public and private industry, energy industry personnel, and establish key stakeholder contacts. Our office monitors, collects, analyzes, and disseminates information on energy networks in the Commonwealth through interaction with energy sector partners and other ESFs, and through existing state and federal databases. OEP serves as liaison to national or regional organizations that deal with the same energy issues, and ultimately we communicate the needs and interests of ESF 12 energy sector partners during an energy emergency. So during the time of an energy disruption, the Office of Energy Policy is responsible for reporting accurate information on the current energy profile, establishing anticipated restoration times, and communicating and routing resource requests where needed. In order to communicate effectively, ESF 12 has established communication protocols utilizing two response management systems. One is ReadyOp. Offering a disaster management tool, ReadyOp is developed by efficiently and effectively planning, managing, communicating, and direct activities with a single organization or a unified command structure involving multiple organizations. One of the unique features of ReadyOp is the custom forms can be created and then shared electronically as needed. It's designed to handle the fast-paced demanding communication challenges of incident command response, and ReadyOp's flexibility supports daily and exercise response activities for a single organization, as well as unified multi-locational agencies and operations. So when ESF 12 is activated to the State Energy Emergency Operations Center, we get the call down from either federal or state. ESF 12 we represent. We then put communications into ReadyOp, and then we send that out to all of our private sector partners. We have found that it is very efficient, and we are able to reach the magnitude of our stakeholders versus spending the time to reach out to them independently. So this has worked out very well for us. This is a visual of what ReadyOp looks like when you're in the system. It is very user-friendly, easily updated, and one of the main things for me when I'm putting in our energy sector stakeholder contacts is that there are tags that I could put specific words there for groupings that I can find stakeholders very easily. So here we are, we're at the EOC, and we need to notify our partners that we've been activated and just for situational awareness, or if we need more information from them at this time. Here's what it would look like, and we send that mass messaging out at once. So then on the back end, we send that out to our stakeholders, but how do we then put our information in at the state that can be routed to other state agencies as well as KYEM, and then ultimately up to the governor? We use Web EOC. It is a web-based crisis management system designed for supporting the incident command structure method of response and management for significant events, in addition to providing a unique tool set for supporting daily operations in the Regional Response Center and the headquarters for the Emergency Operations Center. So when our private sector partners reach out to ESF 12, we then go to WebEOC. We either put that in there for situational awareness or for a resource request. Everyone at the Emergency Operations Center and all ESFs are available to see this, and we share information using this web-based system.
I'm gonna jump in right here. WebEOC is really this is Kenya, this is really our communication tool to KYEM and to the governor's office when there's an incident, and we prepare situational reports on the status of the energy systems in the impacted area. However, our private sector partners are also in communication with the local emergency managers. Local emergency managers are very adept at using WebEOC for resource requests coming through the local EMs through WebEOC. So I will say this, ESF 12 doesn't get, or do we put in a substantial amount of resource requests. We monitor the resource requests coming directly from the local EMs, and then we're there to ensure that we're providing the support in order for those resource requests to be met, such as one that comes to mind, refueling generators or getting generators set, or doing an energy assessment in order to determine what size generator, and then, or propane. We've worked with our propane partners on propane deliveries when that resource request comes in through the EM. So just wanted to make that point. I'm going to give it back over to Amanda. But WebEOC is our main communication tool in terms of sharing what we do, and also tracking our activities during an event, our event log. Amanda?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great segue, because not only is it for information on the front end, but when the disaster incident is closing up, each ESF is responsible for their own description logs, as well as developing an after action report. So it is very nice that I can go into this web-based system and find all of these incidents either put in by ESF 12 or other entities, and really do a wrap up of the AAR. And then also it helps me to know what I might need to follow up with that doesn't look like it's closed. So we work really well with both of these web-based systems. Without them, our communication probably would be a lot swayed. So we're thankful to have this with our protocol, and we've exercised this heavily over the last 2.5 years as we represent ESF 12 at the State Emergency Operations Center.
But that said, I will say this, because I know someone on here is thinking, well, what happens when the internet is down? We're fully prepared. We've actually exercised that. We have all of our contacts and information in hard copy form. If the internet is down, we can still activate and utilize the energy assurance plan, energy security plan. It's just we would have to activate it and use it in what I would say we'd have to go to old school mode. We'd have to call you or come find you and get information that way. But that said, we would still do the same activities, but we would do it in just a different form, not if we did not have the internet that was available. But KYEM through the SEOC has capabilities and plans for in the event that they can be operational. And we have yet to have an incident where we were not operational at the SEOC, or where we didn't have our communication capabilities.
So really that wraps it up. When an emergency is declared and energy disruptions are there, ESF 12 is on scene. We're working diligently with our energy sector partners to mitigate any issues, help them with resources, or really just be situational awareness for KYM staff on scene that has to report to the governor. So thanks for everyone for attending today. I'm going to pass it over to Kenya.
I'm gonna take a break, just a little bit of a break. Anybody, any burning questions that came up you'd like to drop in the Q&A? Let's check that out, Carol. Good to see you, Lona, Nick, Jason, and Mike. Always good to have you on board. If you do have questions, we're gonna have a Q&A period at the end of this. I just wanted to make sure we didn't have anything that popped up right now, so thank you. So now you get to come into, if you can click back down here, Carol. Now we're gonna talk about Kentucky's energy security plan. Kentucky has a long history with energy emergency response planning, preparedness. This is not a new plan. In fact, the oldest plan that we have on record goes back to 2010, but the requirements to conduct energy emergency planning extend way beyond that. So for those of you who think this is a new plan, it's actually an update to an existing plan that we've had for many, many years. It's evolving, it always evolves. It's in a constant state of being exercised and updated. And we've had that over these past 2.5 years as we've had to exercise this plan in real world situations, from natural disasters to man-made events. So just some context. When we talk about our energy supply, energy structure, we're looking at everything from demand, the grid, generation sources, such as our coal plants, hydropower, renewables. On the natural resource side, oil, gas, and coal. The infrastructure to transport that, whether it be fuel transport, pipelines, and then of course our refineries. So ESF 12 and our office in partnership with the PSC is basically tasked with looking at situational awareness across all of these energy systems. And more importantly, establishing those relationships with our key private sector partners. As Amanda mentioned, we don't do the active response and recovery. We're fully aware that it's our private sector partners that are on the ground in the field doing the response and working on the recovery. Our job is to be situationally aware, ensure that we have communications, and ensure that there are no barriers to the private sector being able to respond and recover. A little bit of background just about what we face. This is from DOE's risk assessment profile for Kentucky. From 2013 to 2019, we had 305 major disaster declarations and 5 fire management assistance declarations for 11 events. This obviously is going to change given what's happened since 2019, this graphic below. Given the pandemic, tornado, and wind, ice, and storm events, and now the horrific flooding events in Eastern Kentucky. But in general, we are susceptible to everything on this list. Although we're not directly hit by a hurricane, we do actually have flooding and storm events that are hurricane related once hurricanes move inland. But this just gives you an idea of what our energy infrastructure is facing in terms of a risk profile. This is actually a heat map of the NOAA storm events, I believe from 1950 to 2019, I think. And so not surprising, given our recent events over the past 2.5 years, these hotspots are very familiar to many of us who do emergency response and recovery. Similarly, we also look to FEMA's National Risk Index. And why we look to this index is because not only does it look at expected annual losses, but it also looks at social vulnerability. And really, it's a risk factor that represents the susceptibility of social groups to the adverse impacts of natural hazards. And then that index is then divided by what we call community resilience, and that represents the ability of a community to prepare for anticipated natural hazards, adapt, and be able to withstand and recover rapidly. When you take all of this data, go through this formula, you have what we call the National Risk Index. And the scale that we'll see at the census tract level is you're at a very high risk in the red and very low risk in the blue. But what does that look like for Kentucky, and how does that inform us? So when we look at preparing, looking at our energy security plan, we look at risk and who's at risk, because when we have an event that occurs and then we're looking at a particular geographic area, we can identify communities and census tracts that are at a higher risk. And unfortunately, the ones that we see in red are the ones we're very familiar with that are still in recovery from recent events and are coming out of response and moving into recovery phases, both in the West and the East. But we're also concerned about not just risk, but our critical facilities. As Amanda mentioned, it's very important that we have critical facilities and infrastructure that can help sustain community lifelines in a community. This really represents a density map of critical facilities in the state. And you can begin to see that the idea of creating regional resilience makes a lot of sense in terms of where our critical facilities are. And when I say critical facilities, now we're talking about not only water, wastewater, healthcare, you're talking about long-term care, daycares, talking about banking facilities, basic government operations, food, grocery stores, pharmacies, are all critical to sustaining basic community services. And what it all boils down to, as John mentioned in his earlier comments, is we're an interdependent system. Electricity, petroleum, and natural gas are very interdependent, and all other systems rely on these basic energy systems. From banking, communications, and information technology, we saw that in East Kentucky when we worked very closely with our communications ESF on just getting cell phone service restored. We've seen that with natural gas disruptions and impacts to our electricity sector, but we've also seen it if the electricity's out and you have compressor stations or you have gas stations that need to pump fuel. How do we deal with that? We saw that, we're seeing it right now on the petroleum side with the BP Whiting refinery fire in Indiana. But we also saw that with the cyber event on the Colonial Pipeline and how important that is for transportation systems, water, wastewater systems. And as John mentioned, that's why we're here. That's why we're here working together. Is energy security is about addressing, being aware of these interdependencies, preparing, exercising, and putting in place mitigation measures so that if there is a long-term petroleum issue, if there's a long-term electricity issue or natural gas issue, how do we ensure that the other basic systems are up and running? So energy security planning. As I mentioned, this is not a new concept in Kentucky. It's previously known as Kentucky's Energy Assurance Plan. Our latest one was 2018, and we've been exercising that over these past 2.5 years. And when we weren't activated, we've been doing routine updates to the Energy Assurance Plan. It was part of the 1990 amendments to the Energy Policy and Conservation Act. It was effective October 1st, 1991. It also is required by state energy offices in every state that in order for us to receive our federal financial assistance, that we have a energy assurance plan on file. We do submit that plan to a secure portal at the DOE Caesar office. It's only for informational purposes only, and there's no approval requirement by the Secretary of DOE. But with the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, Section 401018, there were requirements to update this earlier mandatory provision, recognizing the need that we needed an all hazards evaluation of the state energy system, beefing up the sections on cybersecurity and some additional criteria. I can say that we did submit our 2018 plan to NASIO, the National Association of State Energy Offices, and our 2018 plan was in very good shape. There were only two areas that we really need to update, and that was really around a little bit more information on cybersecurity threats, as well as multi-state aid, mutual aid. So our 2018 plan was already in very good shape as we come into the EAAG new requirements. As Amanda said, our energy security plan really is about coordination, monitoring, and situational awareness. It describes the energy systems in Kentucky, profiles our energy use and production, and really outlines our monitoring and response procedures during a disruption. The heart of the plan really is our contact and relationships that we have with key stakeholders in Kentucky. It is grounded, as Amanda said, in Kentucky's incident command structure, FEMA's community lifelines, and our emergency support functions. If you're unfamiliar with community lifelines, it's the essence of what we work towards during an event. Community lifelines encompass all of the emergency support functions, and it's a way that we can ensure continuous operation of critical business and government functions, and it's essential to human health and safety and economic security. Our goal is really to have stabilization of all of these community lifelines as quickly as possible during an emergency activation. So our goals are really just to help you in the state have enhanced preparation and training in our communities, have exceptional situational awareness during a disruption, coordinate communication and action that will really result in efficient response and recovery of services by our private sector partners. The response goals when we're over at Kentucky Emergency Management is, when there's an event, your lifelines either are green, yellow, or red. Red meaning not operational, yellow meaning you've got things in place, but they're not at full capacity. And then green, you're at full capacity, community lifelines are sustained. Our goal is really to get community lifelines to green as soon as possible. So the 2022 updates to the Energy Assurance Plan. Again, the bipartisan infrastructure law, or EAAG, requires us to do some updates to what was known as Kentucky's Energy Assurance Plan, but now the Kentucky Energy Security Plan. it really requires us to address all energy sources, regulated and unregulated in the state. We had already done that in 2018. Number two, provide a state energy profile. We do that with the Kentucky energy profile. And so that was already in our 2018 plan. Address potential hazards to each energy system. We did beef this section up a bit because while we had potential hazards identified for the entire state, we then had to look at specific physical threats and vulnerabilities on the different systems: natural gas, fuels, electricity, oil, coal. And so we had to do a little bit deeper dive in section 3. We did a risk assessment of the energy infrastructure and cross-sector interdependencies. We did some new graphics on that. That was really around those FEMA risk indexes and cross-sector interdependency charts, so that we knew a little bit more about those interdependencies across our energy systems. We already had risk mitigation approach in our 2018 plan. We did do a little bit more on that in terms of end use resilience. And then we were a little bit deficient coming into it on multi-state regional coordination and mutual assistance planning, but we were able to work with NASIO and DOE to add some additional language to address that requirement. If you're wondering where all of these are, we've done a crosswalk for you. So all of these you'll find, do we have them in our plan? Yes, no, and then the reference page numbers. This crosswalk is also required for our submittal to DOE when we submit our plan to DOE at the end of September. This is just an example. If you're unfamiliar with mitigation measures, what we're talking about in terms of mitigation measures. We list mitigation measures. None of them are automatic. They're there as just information in terms of here are things, tools at your disposal in the event there's a disruption. You can see we have examples of flood mitigation measures, wind, drought, modernization in terms of censoring and situational awareness on that side, advanced planning and preparedness mitigation measures, and of course, storm readiness measures as well. Other plan updates, like I said, 2018 was in good shape, except for just updating our charts and visualizations. We will be updating our energy profile later this summer. We did add a deeper dive on petroleum. We call that just an annex to our plan, and it was really just a more detailed description of our petroleum infrastructure. We utilized Energy Information Administration public data and provided a little bit more deeper dive on fuel-specific mitigation measures should a extreme prolonged shortage occur. This section was added after Colonial, even though the Colonial pipeline incident was not directly impacting Kentucky. We did feel some indirect effects from that. KYM in communication with us asked us to do a little bit more deeper dive on what would happen if that happened in Kentucky. So we used NASIO's guidance on petroleum shortage response planning, tailored that a little bit to our needs, and added in a petroleum shortage annex to our plan. Our next steps. Really, we're required that submit it to the governor, just like KYM and the emergency operations plan. So we will submit to the governor's office, and he will have to provide a letter of acceptance on the energy security plan. Per the IIJA, we must submit by September 30th to the secure ICERNet portal, our energy security plan. We will begin ESF training to all stakeholders. I know we worked with Kentucky Petroleum Marketers to do some ESF 12 training, but we're here to basically say, we're here to help you in the private sector understand how we work at ESF 12 and how we can better work together during a disaster. We also, in November, will host a national energy security boot camp. We're working with NASIO to host that National Energy Security Planning Boot Camp in Louisville in November. So more to come on that. We are lucky that we have Kyle Wolf with the Office of Homeland Security here in Kentucky. And Kyle and I in this office are working on utilizing his Regional Resilience Assessment Program to look at resilience assessment of our energy infrastructure in Kentucky. They've worked with several other states, including Tennessee, Idaho, some Midwestern states, and that application period is open right now with Homeland Security. Amanda Lemaster here will begin implementation of our FEMA Building Resilient Infrastructure in Communities grant that we were awarded or sub-awarded. That grant is really exciting because we are working with the area development districts to survey critical facilities as part of their mitigation planning work in the area development districts, to survey critical facilities of their awareness and their interdependencies on their energy systems. We hope that our ads will take that data with the help of our office and the EIS Council to say, okay, how do we look at our mitigation plans and what are our long-term disruptions? How does that inform us in terms of mitigation actions for our critical facilities at the local level? And it's not that complicated. It could be they need an automatic transfer switch, or it could be that they need a generator. It could be more extreme, working with their utility on a secondary feed, or it could be, microgrid. It could be behind the meter installations. It could be working on, the infrastructure around that facility with the private sector to help harden it once that is identified as a critical facility. So more to come on FEMA BRIC and that implementation with the ads in 2023. And then finally, we're very excited about section 40101D. That's in the IIJA. We've shortened the title down and just call it grid resilience. That's our application for grid resilience projects that is due to be submitted September 30th to DOE. The public hearing for that will be next Tuesday, September 6th. It's not too late to sign up for the public hearing, or if you would like to provide oral comments during that public hearing. And we're also accepting written comments on that grid resilience narrative through tomorrow, right? Through Friday. And if you have questions about the 40101D, getting signed up for that, a public hearing, providing comments, that's on our Naturally Connected blog. That's been public noticed, or you can contact myself or Carol Stringer and we'll get you in touch with the procedures if you would like to provide oral comments or written comments on the narrative. The narrative is posted on the EEC website under the Building Better Kentucky resources under grid resilience. And I think that's it for now for our energy security planning. We will now go into questions, so Q&A, and I think we'd stop sharing. Let's stop sharing. All right, so we'll go into questions.
Just got everybody's names in here.
Hello, Brian Clark. Good to see you. Brian Clark is KPMA. I can't speak highly enough about Brian and KPMA and their work with us during all of our disasters on the petroleum side, as well as our electric co-ops, all of our electric utilities. Jason Glass with Department of Agriculture does the waivers on his side on the RVPs. So thank you, Jason. Any questions? I'm gonna give you a last call for questions. And we have a poll. So if you're still with us, we will go on with the poll. Hey, Mike West from the AG's office. Good to see you too. All right, we're gonna launch into the poll. If you have a question, we'll check back after the poll. Eight of 18, come on. We'll give you a few more seconds. There's a few of you who haven't answered, but this is great participation. All right, we'll end our poll. We'll share the results. So thank you all so much. This really helps inform Amanda and myself. I know KYEM is on. It definitely looks like this may be a good time once we kind of get stabilized after the flooding event. Hopefully we have a little bit of a quiet time in terms of our activations. We can begin working on bringing the Energy Assurance Advisory Group together for a tabletop exercise in partnership with KYEM, maybe focus on electricity and fuel. I know Amanda just came back from one in Tennessee and Wisconsin, and we can lean on NASIO and DOE to help us with, and KYEM to help us with a tabletop exercise. We will be launching our training on ESF 12. If you would like us to come present at your group, we're happy to come in person, virtually, and we will have some self-paced ESF 12 training later this year. I'm sure we can work with KYEM. Any of you who are interested in kind of going to see the SEOC, meeting the folks at KYEM, Amanda and I can work on that as well with Director Slinker. And yes, getting connected with ReadyOp. So ReadyOp is very easy. We can send out the register with ReadyOp link to those on this meeting. And you can self-register for ReadyOp and get connected. That way, when we are activated and we're assessing the situation, you can be connected with us through ReadyOp. I think that's it. We're gonna check the questions one more time. All right, you can turn on the video. So again, thank you all for joining us today. We hope our next meeting of the EAAG will be in person, but we also know this enables us to record it for those who couldn't be here, as well as lessen travel time for some. We appreciate your participation, your attendance, hanging with us as we went through ESF 12 and the Kentucky Energy Security Plan. Like I said, we encourage you to look at that, and we will send out, the link to the plan after this. We'll also send out that crosswalk if you'd like to look at the plan in a little bit more detail in those sections. And then our main task is we will submit our plan to DOE by September 30th. And then also we encourage everyone to participate in the public hearing next Tuesday. Thank you again for joining us, taking time this morning. And we look forward to working with you in the future. And do not hesitate to reach out to myself or Amanda Lemaster. So thank you again. Everyone have a wonderful day.
Bye, guys.